Adeline was a free-spirited woman, with a contagious smile and eyes that sparkled like stars. Her long, wavy hair was adorned with small braids and floral decorations, reflecting her personality. Her clothes were an explosion of colours and textures, long, flowing skirts, cotton blouses with delicate embroidery, and handcrafted necklaces. She almost never wore makeup. As a Pilates instructor, Adeline helped people find balance and well-being through movement. In her spare time, she passionately dedicated herself to volunteer work at the local animal shelter. There, surrounded by abandoned dogs and cats, her heart overflowed with love and compassion. It was one afternoon when William entered the shelter, bringing with him a completely different aura. Tall and athletic, he wore a flawlessly pressed suit and shoes so shiny they could serve as mirrors. His brown hair was meticulously combed, and a navy blue tie completed the executive look. "Good afternoon," he said firmly. "I'm looking for a little puppy for my younger sister." Adeline, who was crouched down cleaning a cage, stood up with a start. In the sudden movement, she knocked over a large bowl of water that was beside her, soaking William's shiny shoes. "Oh no, so sorry," she exclaimed, mortified. She quickly grabbed some towels and began frantically drying the man's feet. William stepped back, clearly irritated. "Look what you've done. These shoes are imported." Adeline frowned, stopping her movements. "Well, sir, maybe it's not a good idea to wear such expensive shoes to visit an animal shelter. Here we deal with a lot of fluids." They stared at each other for a few seconds, the tension palpable in the air. Then, to their mutual surprise, they began to laugh at the same time. "You're right," admitted William, shaking his head. "I guess I didn't think that through very well. Your arguments are quite convincing, you know. You should be a lawyer." Adeline smiled, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "And you, with that neatly pressed outfit, are definitely ready for the courtroom." "In fact, I am a lawyer," William replied with a mischievous grin. "And I could sue you for material damages to my imported shoes." Adeline's face twisted into a look of horror until she noticed the playful sparkle in his eyes. They both burst into laughter again, breaking any lingering tension. In the days that followed, William returned to the shelter several times. First, he claimed he needed to see more dogs to be sure of his choice. Then, he said he wanted to check if the puppy was adapting well. Next, he showed up with the excuse that he might want to adopt a cat too. Adeline noticed the intentions behind the visits but pretended not to, secretly charmed by the presence of the well-dressed lawyer who seemed so out of place in that environment, yet so determined to be there. Finally, after 2 weeks of almost daily visits, William gathered courage. "Adeline," he began, nervously adjusting his tie, "would you like to have dinner with me tonight?" Her smile lit up the entire room. "I thought you'd never ask," she replied with a mischievous twinkle in her eyes. The relationship between Adeline and William blossomed quickly, like a seed planted in fertile soil and tenderly nurtured. They were opposites in many ways, but they complemented each other in a unique and special way. While William lived in the city centre, in a modern and minimalist apartment, Adeline lived on the outskirts, in a colourful house surrounded by a lush garden. He woke up early, drank black coffee, and went straight to the office. She started the day with an outdoor meditation, followed by a tea made from fresh herbs picked from her own garden. Despite the differences, or perhaps because of them, the love between the two grew each day. William learned to relax more, take off his shoes occasionally, and feel the grass under his feet. Adeline, in turn, discovered that there was a certain beauty in the organisation and punctuality she once despised. The first time Adeline met William's family was a memorable experience, to say the least. His parents' mansion was imposing, with Greek columns at the entrance and a meticulously maintained garden. Adeline felt as if she were entering a world completely different from her own. Susanna, William's mother, greeted them at the door with a rehearsed smile. Her eyes scanned Adeline from top to bottom, pausing for a moment on the young woman's feet. Adeline was wearing leather-strap sandals. "Dear, you must have forgotten to change your shoes," she commented with a forced laugh. "Actually, Ma'am," replied Adeline with a genuine smile, "I prefer to be more comfortable. I hope you don't mind." The dinner was a succession of uncomfortable moments. The table was set with silver cutlery and crystal glasses. Adeline, used to eating with her hands whenever possible, struggled to handle the various forks and spoons. "So, Adeline," began William's father, a man with a serious expression. "William told us you're a Pilates instructor. That's interesting. Do you plan to open your own studio someday?" Before she could respond, Susanna intervened. "Oh dear, I'm sure Adeline doesn't think about the future in that way. After all, she spends her free time taking care of street dogs, doesn't she?" Adeline felt her face burn, but she kept her composure. "Actually," she replied calmly, "I do plan to open my own studio. And the volunteer work at the shelter is something that brings me a lot of satisfaction and helps me be a better person." William squeezed her hand under the table, a silent gesture of support and pride. Despite the turbulent beginning, Adeline and William's relationship continued to strengthen. They learned to navigate between their very different worlds, creating their own universe where they could both be authentic. When William proposed to Adeline, it was a scene worthy of a romantic movie. At sunset, he knelt on the grass, without worrying about the suit pants, and presented a simple but beautiful ring with a small emerald, Adeline's favourite stone. Adeline's parents were thrilled with the news. Her mother immediately suggested a wedding in the barn on the family estate. "It would be perfect," she exclaimed. "We can decorate with wildflowers and a string of lights. It will be magical." Adeline loved the idea, envisioning herself walking down an aisle covered with petals, with the sweet smell of hay in the air and the soft sound of a guitar in the background. However, when the wedding preparations began, it became clear that Susanna, William's mother, had other plans in mind. "A barn? Darling, that's simply unthinkable," Susanna said with a condescending smile. "I know the owner of that sophisticated hall downtown. I can book it in the blink of an eye." And before Adeline could protest, Susanna was already on the phone, making arrangements. In the months that followed, Adeline found herself caught up in a whirlwind of decisions she didn't really care about. Napkin colours, table arrangements, the choice of cutlery, it all seemed so distant from what she had imagined for her special day. But there was one thing Adeline truly cared about: the wedding dress. She dreamed of wearing the same dress her mother had worn at her wedding. It was a simple dress with delicate lace, without a hoop or extravagant train. The fluid fabric draped gracefully, framing the body naturally and elegantly. The dress had been handmade by Adeline's grandmother, especially for the wedding. When Adeline mentioned her wish to Susanna, the reaction was immediate and emphatic. "Absolutely not, Adeline," protested Susanna, horrified. "Imagine you marrying my son in such a simple dress. No, that's not going to happen. I am friends with the best designers in the country, and they will surely design an exclusive model for this date." Once again, before Adeline could argue, Susanna was already on the phone. The next day, Adeline found herself standing on a pedestal, surrounded by mirrors, while a team of stylists took her measurements and discussed fabrics and styles. Adeline's mother watched the scene with concern, noticing how her daughter seemed uncomfortable and sad, even though she tried to hide her emotions with a forced smile for Susanna. Taking advantage of a moment when Susanna stepped away to take a call, Adeline's mother approached her daughter. "Darling," she said softly, "this wedding is yours and William's. Don't let Susanna impose her will so much and override yours." Adeline sighed deeply. "It's just a party, Mum." "It's okay," she replied, more to convince herself than her mother. The days passed quickly, and soon the big day arrived. Adeline was in a luxurious room at the hotel where the ceremony would take place, surrounded by makeup artists and hairstylists. The dress chosen by Susanna was a masterpiece in itself. Layers and layers of tulle and silk, elaborate embroidery, and a train that seemed to stretch for miles. Adeline looked at herself in the mirror, barely recognizing the woman she saw reflected. The dress was tight, restricting her movements. The high-heeled shoes made her feel unsteady. Her hair, tied up in an elaborate bun, was so full of hairspray it seemed artificial. At that moment, Adeline's mother entered the room carrying something in her arms. "Daughter, look what I brought," she said, unfolding the old wedding dress. "If you change your mind, it's ready to be worn." Adeline looked at the dress with teary eyes. It was exactly as she had dreamed. Simple, elegant, full of history and meaning. For a moment she seriously considered changing clothes. But then she thought about all the work Susanna had done, about all the guests waiting outside, and decided to go ahead with the original plan. As she walked to position herself for her entrance, somewhat awkward due to her lack of practice, she stumbled in the high heels. Regaining her balance, she thought, "I won't wear these shoes, or I will end up falling while walking down the aisle." With a quick motion, she got rid of the shoes, remaining barefoot. Then the doors finally opened, and it was at that moment that she truly saw the hall for the first time. The decorations were extravagant, lights flickered everywhere, and there were faces, hundreds of them, of people she barely knew. Camera flashes went off incessantly, and Adeline could barely see William at the altar. He seemed so distant. Suddenly the dress felt even tighter. She couldn't breathe properly. She felt suffocated not just by the fabric, but by the whole situation. In an act of desperation, as if trying to break free from something that prevented her from breathing, Adeline grabbed the fabric of the dress and tore it, right there, in front of all the guests. A shocked silence fell over the hall. Adeline stood there about to walk down that aisle, barefoot with the dress torn, tears streaming down her face and ruining the carefully applied makeup. Adeline's mother, realizing the gravity of the situation, quickly asked for the hall doors to be closed. She hurried to her daughter, took her by the arm, and led her back to the preparation room. Adeline sobbed uncontrollably as the shocked murmurs of the guests echoed down the corridor. William, seeing the commotion, rushed to the room where Adeline was. He found her sitting in an armchair sobbing, while her mother tried to calm her down. "Adeline, my love," William said softly, kneeling beside her. "It's okay. We can cancel all of this if you want. I don't care about the party, the guests, or any of that. I only care about you." He took her hands in his eyes overflowing with love and understanding. "I fell in love with you, Adeline. The free-spirited woman who walks barefoot and talks to animals. Not this version that someone thought you should be. If you want, we can leave here right now, go to that park where we had our first date, and get married right there, just the two of us." William's words soothed Adeline. She looked at him, then at her mother's dress, which was still hanging nearby. An idea began to form in her mind. "No," she said, wiping away the tears. "Let's do this, but in our own way." Adeline asked for all the lights in the hall to be turned off, leaving only a few candles lit. She requested that the DJ be dismissed and that only a guitarist play the couple's favorite song. Then, she dressed in her mother's old dress, leaving her hair down and her feet bare. William, on the other hand, removed his jacket and tie, remaining only in his shirt and pants. When Adeline entered the dimly lit hall, illuminated only by the gentle glow of the candles, a collective gasp swept through the audience. She looked ethereal, radiant in her simplicity and authenticity. The ceremony was brief and moving. William and Adeline exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising mutual love, respect, and acceptance. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the hall erupted in applause. In the months that followed, the couple organized a small celebration in the barn at Adeline's parents' house, just as she had always dreamed. Only the closest friends and family were invited. The decoration was simple, with wildflowers and a string of lights. The music was live, played by musician friends of the couple. Adeline wore her mother's dress again, and William was comfortable in a linen shirt and light pants. They danced barefoot on the grass, laughed with their friends, and celebrated their love in a way that truly reflected who they were. The photos from that day, full of genuine smiles and moments of pure joy, adorned the couple's home shelf. They told the story not only of a wedding but of a couple who learned to be true to themselves and to each other. Adeline learned a valuable lesson from this whole experience. Trying to please everyone, especially at such significant moments in life, often means erasing your own personality. This can lead to great frustration and even emotional collapse, as she experienced. And so, barefoot and smiling, Adeline and William began their journey together, ready to face any challenge life might bring, always true to themselves and to the love that united them. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.